The journey has been long, and now, as the sun begins its descent toward the Caribbean horizon, you feel the first whisper of arrival. The road curves gently, revealing glimpses of water between the trees, flashes of gold and copper where the evening light catches the waves. Each turn brings you closer, the air shifting gradually from the warmth of inland Colombia to something softer, touched by salt and the promise of the sea. Your vehicle slows as you approach the coast, windows open to let in the changing atmosphere. The breeze that finds you carries more than just the ocean's signature. There's wood smoke from distant cooking fires, the green scent of vegetation that thrives in coastal humidity, and, underneath it all, that particular quality of air that belongs only to ancient port cities, where countless arrivals and departures have left their invisible mark. You breathe deeply, letting this new air fill your lungs, feeling your shoulders soften with each exhale. The sky above transforms moment by moment. What was bright blue an hour ago now deepens through shades of lavender and rose, clouds catching fire along their edges before mellowing into softer purples. This is the magic hour, when the world seems to pause between day and night, holding both in perfect balance. The light spreads across the water in a golden path that seems to lead directly to where you're heading. And there, rising from the coastline like something conjured from dreams and history combined, you see it. Cartagena de Indias. The city reveals itself slowly, first as a suggestion of shapes against the darkening sky, then with increasing clarity as you draw nearer. The walls come into focus first, those legendary fortifications that have stood for nearly 500 years, their massive stones now glowing with captured sunlight. They seem to emanate warmth, as if they've been absorbing the Caribbean sun all day and now release it back into the cooling air. The closer you come, the more the city takes form. Towers and church domes pierce the skyline within those protective walls, their silhouettes creating a rhythm against the sunset. The fortress of San Felipe crowns its hill to your left, solid and reassuring, while to your right, the Caribbean Sea stretches endlessly, its surface transformed into molten copper by the evening light. Between these two constants, the permanence of stone and the eternal movement of water, the city nestles like something precious being carefully guarded. You follow the coastal road now, and through your open window comes a symphony of evening sounds. The waves maintain their steady percussion against the shore, a rhythm that seems to slow your heartbeat to match its ancient tempo. Seabirds call to each other as they return to their roosts, their cries mixing with more human sounds drifting from the city ahead. Fragments of music that rise and fall on the breeze. There's guitar in there somewhere, and drums, and voices raised in what might be song or simply animated conversation. The temperature has shifted to that perfect point where the air feels neither warm nor cool against your skin, but exactly right, as if you found the precise climate your body has always sought. The humidity wraps around you gently, like silk, carrying with it the perfume of the tropics, frangipani and jasmine beginning their evening bloom, mixed with the earthier scents of palm fronds and distant rain. As you approach the city proper, modern buildings briefly embrace you, hotels and apartments that could belong to any coastal city. But these hold your attention only momentarily, because beyond them, growing larger with each moment, stand those walls. They're more impressive up close than you imagined. Not just high, but thick, substantial, speaking of an era when cities needed such protection, when the Caribbean was a theatre of empires and adventures. You pause again, letting your breath find its natural rhythm, matching it to the steady sound of the waves. The traffic slows as you near the old city, giving you time to absorb the transition. Street vendors appear alongside the road, their carts lit by small lamps, selling fresh fruit and grilled corn. The smell of their offerings mingles with salt air, sweet pineapple, smoky meat, the sharp scent of lime being squeezed over sliced mango. Your senses awaken gently to these offerings, each scent a welcome without urgency. The sun touches the horizon now, that moment when it seems to hesitate before beginning its final plunge. The light becomes even richer, more golden, transforming everything it touches. The walls of Cartagena catch this light and seem to glow from within, as if lit by centuries of accumulated sunsets. Windows in the towers flash like gentle signals, and you notice for the first time that lanterns are beginning to appear along the ramparts. Small points of warmer light, preparing to take over from the sun's fading brilliance. You've left your vehicle now, choosing to approach on foot for these last moments of arrival. The ground beneath your feet transitions from modern pavement to older stones, worn smooth by countless other arrivals. Each step takes you further from the familiar world and deeper into something that feels both foreign and mysteriously welcoming. Other people move around you, locals heading home for the evening, children playing in the last light, old men sitting on benches watching the sun perform its nightly finale. The music grows clearer as you approach the walls. It's not a single source, but many. A guitar from one direction, drums from another, and from somewhere high above, perhaps from one of those wooden balconies, you can now make out the sound of someone singing. Their voice carries on the evening air with a beauty that makes you pause. This isn't performance, but simply life being lived, the soundtrack of a city that has never forgotten how to celebrate the transition from day to night. Another deep breath, and you feel the day's journey settling from your bones. The massive gates of the old city stand before you now, and through them you can see the beginning of a different world. Narrow streets disappearing into shadow, buildings pressed close together, the warm glow of interior lights spilling from doorways. The archway frames this view like a promise, inviting without insisting. The sun slips below the horizon, and the sky offers a final display of colour. Oranges and purples that seem to breathe with their own light. The sea catches these colours and doubles them, surrounding you with beauty both above and reflected below. The temperature drops just slightly, enough that the warm air feels like a gentle caress against your skin. The breeze picks up slightly, carrying new scents from within the walls. Coffee brewing somewhere, night-blooming flowers, the mustiness of old stone mixed with the freshness of the sea. It's an invitation, gentle but clear. The gates stand open, as they have for so many travellers over so many years, offering passage not just into a place but into a different rhythm of being. The first stars appear overhead, and the lanterns along the walls grow brighter in response, as if in conversation with the cosmos. You take one more breath, filling your lungs with Caribbean air, feeling fully present in this threshold moment. Somewhere within those walls, the evening continues its gentle unfolding, waiting for you to join its story. You move toward the gates with unhurried steps, drawn by the warm lights and the promise of winding streets. As you pass beneath the great stone arch, your feet find the cobblestones, worn smooth by centuries of footsteps. The cobblestones welcome your first steps, and ahead, lamplight beckons from narrow streets that hold centuries of stories. The great stone arch rises above you, its weathered surface still holding the day's warmth as evening settles across Cartagena. You pass beneath it, feeling the subtle shift as you cross from the open Caribbean air into the intimate embrace of the old city. The temperature changes just slightly here, caught and held by centuries-old walls that have learned to cradle the tropical heat. You pause for a moment, letting the cooler air settle around you like a welcoming hand. Your footsteps find the cobblestones, smooth and uneven, each one fitted by hand long before anyone living can remember. The stones speak their own quiet language beneath your feet, some worn to silk by centuries of passage, others still rough with the memory of the quarry. The street ahead curves gently, drawing you forward into a corridor of color that seems to glow in the fading light. Coral pink, turquoise blue, sunflower yellow. The buildings wear their hues like evening dress, each facade a different shade, painted fresh against the salt air. These colors have their own language here, speaking of joy and defiance, of making beauty from simple things. The paint may crack and peel with the seasons, but it always returns, renewed like the city itself. Each fresh coat a small act of faith in tomorrow. Above your head, wooden balconies extend from the second stories, their carved railings draped with cascading bougainvillea. The flowers spill downward in waterfalls of magenta and white, some petals drifting to the stones below, where they gather in small, bright pools. Through the wooden slats of the balconies, you glimpse fragments of evening life. A hammock swaying gently in the breeze, laundry hanging in neat rows catching the last light, the blue flicker of a television screen mixing with the warm glow of candles. The air carries layers of scent that shift and blend as you move deeper into the old city. From a corner cart comes the smell of grilled corn, the vendor turning the cobs over glowing coals with practiced patience. Butter sizzles and sends up small clouds of fragrant smoke. The sweet sharpness of lime cuts through, squeezed fresh over the corn. Further along, through an open doorway painted the color of the sea, the aroma of coffee mingles with something richer, perhaps chocolate melting slowly on a stove, or the caramel sweetness of arequipe simmering in someone's kitchen. A woman passes you, carrying a wooden tray balanced on her head, moving with the fluid grace of someone who has walked these streets all her life. The tray holds sliced fruit, mango, papaya, pineapple, each piece glistening with juice in the amber light. She calls out in a melodic voice, her words rising and falling like a lullaby learned from her mother. The fruit's perfume follows in her wake, tropical sweetness that speaks of morning markets, and trees heavy with ripeness. You breathe it in slowly, feeling your shoulders drop, your pace naturally slowing to match the rhythm of the street. The buildings press close here, their proximity creating a sense of shelter rather than confinement. They lean toward each other across the narrow street like old friends sharing secrets, their upper floors almost touching, creating a canopy of architecture above. Through the gaps between them, you catch glimpses of small courtyards where the last of the daylight pools like honey. In one such space, a fountain bubbles quietly, its water catching the golden glow, the sound of it like a whispered invitation to pause. In another courtyard, an elderly man waters potted orchids with infinite care, their delicate blooms trembling as the droplets find them. The rhythm of the city reveals itself gradually, unfolding like a story told in no particular hurry. A horse-drawn carriage approaches, the steady clip-clop of hooves on stone announcing its arrival long before you see it. The sound is hypnotic, ancient, unchanging, a metronome of centuries. The driver sits relaxed, reins loose in weathered hands, knowing his horse knows these streets as well as he does. The carriage wheels roll over the cobbles with a sound like distant thunder, wooden spokes creaking gently with each revolution. As it passes, you notice the worn leather seats that have carried countless visitors, the brass fittings polished to a soft shine by years of careful attention. A small bouquet of white flowers tied to the lamppost, their petals luminous in the gathering dusk. Windows begin to glow from within as night approaches, not the harsh light of fluorescence, but the warm gold of incandescent bulbs and candles, the kind of light that makes everything it touches seem softer, more forgiving. Through open shutters, you see fragments of evening life unfolding. A family gathering around a dinner table, their faces animated in conversation. Someone reading in a rocking chair, the gentle squeak of wood against wood keeping time. A couple dancing slowly in their living room to music only they can hear, their shadows swaying on the wall behind them. Wrought iron lamps stand at regular intervals along the street, their glass globes beginning to brighten as darkness deepens. Each one is slightly different, handcrafted with small flourishes. A curl here, an extra twist of metal there. The mark of an artisan's personality frozen in iron. They cast overlapping circles of golden light that create a path forward, never quite leaving you in complete darkness. Moths begin their nightly dance around them, their wings catching the glow like tiny, erratic stars pulled into orbit. The sounds of evening layer upon each other in gentle harmony. Somewhere a guitar is being tuned, its strings plucked one by one until they find their proper voice. Children's laughter echoes from a hidden plaza, mixing with the splash of water from an unseen fountain. From the upper floors come the domestic sounds of dishes being washed, the soft clink of ceramic on ceramic, chairs scraping across tile floors, the murmur of television news programs in Spanish, creating a backdrop of familiar cadence. A cat stretches on a windowsill, watches you with amber eyes for a moment, then disappears into the shadows with liquid grace. You pass beneath another archway, this one draped with jasmine vines that have claimed it for their own. The flowers release their perfume as the temperature drops, a scent both intoxicating and gentle, like a half-remembered dream. The white petals seem to hold the last traces of daylight, glowing faintly in the blue hour. The fragrance mingles with the salt breeze that still finds its way through the maze of streets, a constant reminder that the sea is never far away, that this city exists in conversation with the water. A small plaza opens before you, intimate and irregular in shape, as if the building simply decided to step back and create this breathing space. In the center, a modest fountain plays, its water falling in 3 tiers with a sound like whispered secrets. You let the water's rhythm slow your steps, feeling how it seems to wash away the urgency of the outside world. Stone benches circle the fountain, worn smooth by countless visitors over countless years. An old man sits on one, tossing breadcrumbs to the pigeons that gather at his feet in a gentle congregation. The birds coo softly, their grey bodies catching hints of rose and purple in the evening light, their small sounds adding to the plaza's lullaby. The plaza floor is paved with stones that tell their own story. Some original, dark and volcanic, others lighter replacements added over the centuries. Together they create a mosaic of time, each era leaving its mark in stone. Your feet find their rhythm on this uneven surface, adapting to the gentle rises and dips, the occasional loose stone that shifts slightly underfoot with a small, satisfying click. More scents drift from the buildings surrounding the plaza, each doorway offering its own aromatic story. Through one door, painted the color of terracotta, the rich smell of sancocho, the coastal stew that has simmered for hours with yuca, plantain and fresh fish. Through another, the clean scent of fresh laundry, mixed with the floral notes of fabric softener. Someone is burning Palo Santo in an upper room, its sacred smoke drifting down through an open window to mingle with everything else, adding a note of resin and ancient ritual. The architecture reveals itself in details as your eyes adjust to the changing light. Wooden doors twice your height, studded with iron bolts that have turned green with age and salt air. Door knockers shaped like lions' heads or sailing ships, each one unique, each one worn smooth by countless hands reaching out in greeting or farewell. The walls themselves are thick, built to withstand pirates and hurricanes alike. You can sense their mass, their solidity, in the way sound behaves here, muffled and redirected, creating pockets of unexpected quiet, even in the midst of activity. In some places, the plaster has worn away to reveal the coral stone beneath, rough and porous, a reminder that this city rose from the sea itself, built from the bones of ancient reefs. You breathe in the ancient calm these walls have gathered, feeling how they seem to hold not just heat, but time itself. A bicycle passes slowly, its rider in no hurry, a basket on the handlebars filled with evening newspapers. The bike's chain squeaks rhythmically, a humble sound that grounds you in the present moment, even as everything else seems to float between eras. This simple noise, so ordinary and timeless, becomes part of the evening's music. The light has changed completely now. The sun's direct rays replaced by the reflected glow of walls and windows. Everything has become softer, edges blurred into suggestion, colors deepened into rich jewel tones. The yellow walls turn to burnished gold, the blue to deep indigo, the pink to dusky coral. Even the shadows have color here. Purple and brown and blue-black, never quite reaching true darkness, always holding some memory of light. The street narrows again, and you find yourself in an alley barely wide enough for two people to pass. The walls rise high on either side, creating a sense of being held, protected. Between them stretches a canopy of electrical wires and hanging plants, the modern and the natural intertwined. Someone has strung paper lanterns between the balconies, their soft colors, sea green, rose, amber, swaying gently in the breeze that finds its way even here. They're not lit yet, waiting for full darkness, but already they transform the space into something magical, a tunnel of potential light. At the alley's end, another small square appears, this one centered around an enormous ceiba tree, whose roots have lifted and cracked the paving stones over decades of slow, patient growth. Its trunk is massive, requiring 3 people holding hands to encircle it, and its branches spread wide, creating a natural ceiling of leaves that whisper constantly in the breeze. In its shade, even now as night falls, the temperature is notably cooler, as if the tree has stored the memory of rain within its bark. You pause here, breathing in the ancient calm this tree has gathered through all its years of watching over this corner of the city. Small offerings lie at the ceiba's base, flowers wilting gently in the heat, coins that glint in the lamplight, folded papers containing wishes or prayers. These tokens of respect acknowledge this ancient living thing that has watched over this corner of the city for generations, that was here before these buildings, before these streets, perhaps before the city itself dreamed of being. The sounds of night are emerging now, a gradual shift, like an orchestra warming up. Crickets start their chorus from hidden gardens, joined by the occasional whistle of a night bird calling to its mate. Music drifts from various directions, the distant pulse of drums from a plaza where dancers might be gathering, the melodic scales of someone practicing violin behind closed shutters, the recorded bells of an ice cream vendor making his final rounds, his cart's melody fading as he turns a corner. These sounds don't compete but somehow complement each other, weaving together into the particular song of this evening. As you move deeper into the old city, following streets that seem to know where they're taking you even if you don't, you begin to notice the details that speak of time's passage. A cornerstone dated 1689, its numbers barely visible. A Moorish arch incorporated into a later building, its geometric pattern still precise after centuries. The city wears its history openly but without ostentation, each layer visible to those who pause long enough to look. These stones have held stories for so long, tales of conquistadors and merchants, of enslaved people who built these walls, of revolutionaries who walked these streets dreaming of freedom, of pirates who once threatened these shores, of poets who found inspiration in these shadows. The walls hold these tales patiently, like a library of stone, waiting for someone to pause long enough to listen. The warmth of the day still radiates from the walls as you brush past them, a gentle heat that feels like a blessing on your skin. Your footsteps have found their rhythm now, matching the pace of the city itself. Unhurried, contemplative, ready for whatever corner you might turn next. Somewhere in the distance, a church bell begins to toll the hour, its bronze voice carrying over the rooftops with a resonance that seems to come from the earth itself. The sound rolls through the streets, marking time as it has for centuries, each note hanging in the air before dissolving into the night. As the last toll fades, you feel yourself being drawn deeper into the old city, toward the heart of these ancient streets, where deeper stories wait in the shadows between the walls, where the past and present dance together in the Caribbean darkness, where sleep itself seems to be approaching on the warm breeze, patient and inevitable as the tide. The stones beneath your feet have known 500 years of footsteps. Here in Cartagena, every corner holds memory. Every plaza echoes with voices from across the centuries. As you move through these streets, the city reveals itself not just as a place, but as a palimpsest, layer upon layer of human story written and rewritten, yet never fully erased. You pause beside a weathered wall, where the coral stone has been worn smooth by countless hands. This limestone, quarried from the seabed itself, speaks of the city's first great transformation. When the Spanish conquistador Pedro de Heredia founded Cartagena de Indias in 1533, he chose this natural harbour for its deep waters and protective bay. The indigenous Carib people, who had lived here for generations, fishing these waters and cultivating the coastal lands, watched as their world shifted beneath the weight of European ambition. A breath of evening air carries salt and something sweeter, night-blooming jasmine perhaps. You let your fingers trail along the wall as you walk, feeling how the coral stone holds the day's warmth, even as darkness falls. The Spanish saw in Cartagena something magnificent, a perfect stronghold for their treasure fleets, a gateway between the riches of the New World and the coffers of the Old. Gold from Peru, silver from Bolivia, emeralds from Colombia's interior, all of it flowed through these streets on its journey across the Atlantic. You can almost hear the creak of wooden carts laden with wealth, the shouts of dock workers loading galleons, the clink of coins changing hands in the counting houses. The sea breeze strengthens for a moment, and with it comes understanding. Water has always been Cartagena's lifeline, and its vulnerability. Pirates knew this too. Francis Drake laid siege to the city in 1586, extracting ransoms that nearly bankrupted the colony. The French would follow, their attacks leaving scars that took decades to heal. You breathe slowly, letting these distant dramas settle into the rhythm of your steps. In response, the Spanish crown poured fortunes into defense. The walls that embrace you now, Las Murallas, took 2 centuries to complete. 11 kilometers of stone, rising in places to heights that could withstand cannon fire and repel scaling ladders. You run your hand along the rampart, feeling the texture of coral stone mixed with mortar made from oyster shells, a recipe the builders swore would never crumble. Above the city, though hidden now in the evening darkness, looms the Castillo San Felipe de Barajas. That fortress, carved into San Lazaro Hill, represents the pinnacle of Spanish military architecture in the Americas. Its tunnels spiral through solid rock, designed so that even whispered conversations could be heard by guards stationed throughout. The fortress never fell to enemy attack, a testament to both engineering and the determination of those who defended it. You pause again, letting the weight of these defenses sink into your awareness. The coral stone beneath your palm feels almost alive, porous and breathing with the night. Yet for all its grandeur, Cartagena harbored profound darkness too. Through the clock tower gate you passed earlier, enslaved Africans were once marched to auction blocks. The city became one of the largest slave ports in the Americas, a cruel hub where human beings were traded like the gold in the royal warehouses. A small plaza opens before you, where a bronze statue stands. San Pedro Claver, the Jesuit priest who devoted his life to easing the suffering of enslaved Africans. For 40 years, he met every slave ship that arrived, bringing food, medicine, and what comfort he could offer. His small acts of humanity stood in stark contrast to the system he could not overthrow. You breathe deeply, feeling how the warm air seems to hold these memories. The evening settles around you like a meditation, inviting you to witness without judgment, to understand without overwhelm. The weight of this history rests gently in the air, yet something else emerges from it. Resilience transformed into culture, sorrow transmuted into art. The enslaved brought with them memories of West Africa, rhythms, melodies, ways of moving that Spanish chains could not suppress. In the palenques, settlements of escaped slaves hidden in the mountains, African traditions survived and evolved. San Basilio de Palenque, founded by the legendary Bencos Bioho, became the first free town in the Americas. From these roots grew the music that now pulses through Cartagena's veins. Cumbia, born from the fusion of indigenous flutes, African drums, and Spanish melodies. The dance itself tells a story. The shuffling steps recall the movement of shackled feet, while the women's long skirts and candles speak of searching for freedom in the darkness. A distant rhythm reaches you now, drums echoing from somewhere deeper in the old city. The sound is both ancient and immediate, a heartbeat that has pulsed through these streets for generations. You find yourself swaying slightly, your body recognizing something older than memory. The Inquisition, too, left its mark here, in a palace where tribunals once prosecuted heresy. Behind those walls, accusations could destroy lives. Charges of witchcraft, of reading the wrong books, of believing the wrong prayers. The building stands now as a museum, its heavy doors sealed against everything but memory. Yet Cartagena has always been more than its darkest chapters. This was a city of merchants and artisans, of sailors and scholars. In the convents and monasteries, nuns and monks created art, transcribed manuscripts, and maintained libraries that preserved knowledge through centuries of change. You notice how the lamplight catches on different surfaces: smooth plaster, weathered wood, that eternal coral stone. Each texture tells its part of the story. Each shadow holds its own secret. Your breathing has found the rhythm of the place, slow and deep as the Caribbean tide. The architecture around you speaks this polyglot history. Spanish colonial mansions with their wooden balconies, some brown, some white, some blue, each color once signifying rank and profession, lean over streets laid in careful grids. Moorish influences appear in the intricate wooden screens, the interior courtyards with their fountains, the decorative tiles that catch the lamplight. Walking these streets, you understand that every family here carries threads of this complex tapestry. Indigenous bloodlines that survived conquest, Spanish settlers who became Colombian, African descendants who kept memories alive through centuries, Syrian and Lebanese immigrants who arrived bringing their own traditions, all woven together into something unique. The coral stone walls seem to pulse with accumulated warmth, releasing the day's heat in gentle waves. You touch them again, grounding yourself in their solidity, their patient accumulation of time. Even the food tells stories, though the kitchens have grown quiet at this hour. Coconut rice speaks of African cooking traditions adapted to Caribbean ingredients. Sancocho, the hearty stew that simmers in pots throughout the city, combines indigenous root vegetables with Spanish techniques and African seasoning wisdom. The sweet scent of caramelized plantains drifts from a shuttered window, mixing with the jasmine and salt air. Gabriel Garcia Marquez understood this layering. He claimed Cartagena as his own, setting his novel of love and cholera in these very streets. He wrote of the city's humid reality, where everything was saturated with the stupefying fragrance of flowers. His magical realism found perfect expression here, where history itself seems touched with the impossible. You pause at a corner, breathing in the mingled scents, feeling how the night air carries stories like pollen, spreading them invisibly through the sleeping city. The naval history continues in the harbor's eternal rhythm. Spanish galleons gave way to independence-era warships, then to the modern vessels that still dock here. The old port that once loaded gold now welcomes ships from across the Caribbean and beyond. The city remains what it has always been, a crossroads, a meeting place where currents converge. As night deepens around you, the stories seem to layer themselves in the very air. You pass a doorway where someone practices guitar, the melody floating out to join the eternal conversation between past and present. From an upper window comes the blue glow of a television, the modern city dwelling within the ancient one. The clock tower chimes the hour, its bronze bells cast centuries ago, still marking time as they have through revolution and reconstruction, prosperity and decline, sorrow and celebration. Each chime seems to awaken another echo, another memory held in the coral stone. This is Cartagena's gift, not to preserve history as a museum piece, but to live it, breathe it, dance with it in the warm Caribbean night. The walls that protected treasure fleets now protect something more precious, a living culture born from the meeting of worlds, tempered by struggle, and expressed in every chord of music that drifts through the evening air. You feel yourself becoming part of this continuum, another footstep on stones that have known millions, another story briefly intersecting with the greater narrative that flows like the Caribbean current past these shores. The city accepts you, as it has accepted all who arrived here. Conquerors and captives, merchants and mystics, wanderers and seekers. Your breath comes easier now, matching the rhythm of the place. The coral stone beneath your feet feels familiar, as if you've walked these streets before in dreams. Perhaps you have. Perhaps everyone has. The warmth of the night holds all of this, the weight of history made light by the passage of time, trauma transformed through generations into wisdom, divisions dissolved in the crucible of shared space. Tomorrow, Cartagena will wake as it has for 5 centuries, its people carrying forward traditions both ancient and newly born, its stones continuing their patient accumulation of memory. A soft sound draws your attention. Music growing clearer, multiple instruments finding harmony in one of the plazas ahead. First, the drums, that eternal heartbeat. Then, guitars joining, their strings adding melody to rhythm. Now, voices too, threading through the instruments like silk through linen. The rhythms draw you forward, each instrument becoming distinct as you approach the heart of the old city's living celebration. The evening has fully surrendered to night now, and with it, Cartagena transforms into something softer, more intimate. The harsh edges of day have melted away, leaving only the warm glow of lanterns and the gentle murmur of a city settling into its nocturnal rhythm. You move through the streets without urgency, letting your feet choose the path, each turn revealing another facet of this dreaming city. Plaza Santo Domingo opens before you like a stage set for an eternal performance. At its heart, Botero's bronze woman reclines in perpetual repose, her voluptuous form catching amber light from surrounding restaurants. Her surface has been polished to a high shine by countless hands, and even now, a child reaches up to touch her foot, while parents smile from a nearby table. You pause here, letting the plaza's gentle theatre unfold. From a corner where shadows gather, guitar notes emerge. Tentative at first, then growing confident as fingers find their rhythm. The guitarist, silver threading through his hair, closes his eyes as his hands move across the strings. Soon, the soft heartbeat of drums joins in, palms striking skin with practiced ease. The music carries the DNA of cumbia in its bones, that fusion of indigenous, African, and Spanish influences, born in this particular corner of the world. Tonight, it's gentler, stripped to its essence. A few couples begin to sway, bodies finding that instinctive movement when rhythm meets warm air and stone worn smooth by centuries. Near the fountain, an elderly couple finds a pocket of space. They move together with the economy of long practice, her hand on his shoulder, his palm at her waist. No flourish to their dance, just the simple pleasure of moving together through time. Candles flicker on restaurant tables, and the scent of grilled fish mingles with rum and fresh lime. You breathe deeply, letting the night air fill your lungs, then release it slowly. The plaza holds you in its warm embrace for another moment, before you drift away, following a narrow street toward the city walls. Here, between the main arteries of nightlife, Cartagena reveals its quieter face. Windows glow softly, a television's blue flicker, the warm yellow of a reading lamp. Through an open door, you glimpse a family sharing a late meal, their voices a comfortable murmur. The entrance to the walls appears as a stone stairway, worn concave by generations of feet. You ascend slowly, each step lifting you into the broader embrace of the Caribbean night. The temperature drops slightly as you rise, sea breeze finding you more easily, carrying the vast presence of the ocean. On top of the walls, the world divides into two realms. To your right, the Caribbean stretches into infinity, its darkness broken only by phosphorescent crests catching moonlight. The water speaks in its ancient language, that endless conversation between sea and shore. Small lights bob on the horizon, fishing boats perhaps, making their slow passage along the coast. To your left, the old city spreads like an illuminated manuscript. Church domes and bell towers rise above roof lines, silhouettes against a sky where stars compete with the city's amber glow. You walk along ramparts where Spanish soldiers once kept watch, where cannons still point toward a sea that no longer brings such threats. The stone beneath your feet has been worn smooth. In places, you run your hand along walls that bear marks of their construction, chisel marks of those who built these fortifications, patches where coral stone has weathered differently than limestone. Other figures share the walls tonight, moving like shadows, respecting the unspoken agreement that this space calls for quietness. A couple leans against the outer wall, looking to see, forms merged into a single silhouette. An older woman sits on a bench, face turned toward the breeze, eyes closed in meditation. You pause here, matching your breathing to the rhythm of waves below. In, with the sea's approach. Out, with its retreat. The pattern soothes something deep within you. Eventually, you descend back into the city's embrace. Another stairway, another transition from the broad perspective to intimate streets. You emerge into a different neighborhood, quieter, where tourist restaurants have given way to local haunts. An alley, barely wide enough for two, leads past doorways painted in deep blues and greens, colors muted but visible in lamplight. A cat regards you with luminous eyes, then melts back into shadow. The jasmine scent grows stronger here, threading through the warm air like an invisible current. Turning a corner, you discover a small plaza hidden within the walled interior. At its center, a fountain murmurs steadily, water falling from a simple spout into a basin, where coins glitter beneath the surface. The sound is hypnotic, a liquid metronome keeping time for the night. Stone benches surround the fountain, and you pause, letting the sound wash over you. Breathe with the fountain's rhythm. Water falling. Your inhale. The pause between, holding gently. Water rising to fall again. Your exhale, soft and complete. In one corner, votive candles flicker beside a doorway, flames dancing in glass containers, throwing moving shadows across weathered stone. The jasmine is stronger here, almost overwhelming in its sweetness, wrapping around you like an invisible shawl. A church bell tolls somewhere distant. Not urgent, just marking the hour. The bronze voice rolls through streets, absorbed by stone, softened by distance, until it becomes less sound than feeling. You count the strikes without thinking, letting them fade one by one into silence. The city has grown quieter still. Restaurants closing, chairs being stacked, last customers preparing to find their way home. Even the motorcycle taxis have become less frequent, their engines no longer competing for attention. You follow another street, this one lined with colonial mansions. Through open courtyards, you glimpse interior gardens, where palm fronds catch hidden lamplight. Your footsteps echo slightly in these passages, creating a rhythm matching the city's slowing pulse. The scent of the sea underlies everything, the foundation upon which Cartagena rests. Mixed with it are other night scents. Last smoke from kitchen fires, the green smell of plants drinking cooler air, perfume from flowers that open only after dark. Another small square appears, simpler than the others, almost austere. Buildings here are residential, windows dark except for occasional night lights behind curtains. This feels like where the city comes to rest, away from any need to be anything other than itself. The fountain here is older, its stone worn so smooth that any decoration has been erased by time. Water falls with barely a whisper, just enough sound to know it's there, just enough movement to catch light from a single lamp. The benches around it wait empty, patient as the stones themselves. You sit, feeling the day's weight settling into your bones, not unpleasant, but with gentle insistence. The stone beneath you still holds a trace of the day's warmth, releasing it slowly into the cooling night. Your breathing naturally slows to match the fountain's quiet rhythm. The air has found that perfect balance between retained warmth and the cooling influence of the sea. Jasmine drifts stronger now, or perhaps you're simply more aware of it as other inputs fade. The city walls stand guard all around, holding you within their protective embrace. Somewhere beyond them, the Caribbean continues its eternal conversation with the shore, waves breathing against stone in a rhythm as old as the earth itself. The fountain whispers its quieter echo of that vast breathing, and you find yourself suspended between them. The infinite sea and this small, perfect circle of calm. Soon you sense it will be time to seek even deeper rest. But for now, this gentle pause holds you perfectly. The fountain's water falls in a rhythm as old as the city itself, each drop catching the last traces of lamplight before disappearing into the basin below. You found your way to this quiet square, tucked away from the main thoroughfares, where the night has settled into its deepest calm. The stone bench beneath you still holds warmth from the day, releasing it slowly into the cooling air. You let your weight sink into it, feeling how the smooth surface has been polished by countless others who've paused here before you. Above, palm fronds shift in the breeze that never quite leaves this Caribbean shore. Their movement is barely perceptible, just enough to create shifting patterns of shadow and moonlight across the worn cobblestones. The jasmine that climbs the walls nearby releases its perfume in waves, stronger now in the darkness, mixing with the salt air that finds its way even here, within the ancient walls. You breathe it in slowly, letting the sweetness fill your lungs, then release it just as gently. The city has transformed in these late hours. Where earlier there was music and movement, now there's only the occasional echo of footsteps down a distant alley, the soft closing of a shutter somewhere above. The vendors have wheeled their carts away, the restaurants have dimmed their lights, and even the cats that prowled the shadows have found their resting places for the night. The transformation feels complete, as if Cartagena has exhaled after holding its breath all day. You lean back against the cool stone wall behind the bench, feeling its solid presence against your shoulders, the slight roughness of its surface through the thin fabric of your shirt. This wall has stood for centuries, weathering storms from the sea, watching the city change around it while remaining constant. Your fingers trace the texture of the stone beside you, tiny pits and grooves worn by salt air and time, smooth ridges where rain has run for generations. There's something deeply calming in that permanence, in knowing that long after you've gone, this fountain will still be flowing. These walls will still be standing. This square will still be offering refuge to those who find it. The sea makes itself known even here, not in sight but in sound and sensation. Its rhythm carries through the night air, that eternal pulse of waves meeting shore, retreating, returning. It mingles with your own breathing until you can't quite tell where one ends and the other begins. The Caribbean has its own particular voice at night, softer than during the day, more intimate, as if sharing secrets with those who stay awake to listen. You pause, letting your breath match that distant rhythm, in with the surge, out with the retreat. A church bell tolls somewhere in the distance, marking the hour with bronze notes that float across the rooftops. 1, 2, 3. You lose count. Not from inattention, but from a pleasant drowsiness that makes numbers seem unimportant. The sound doesn't disturb the peace, but rather deepens it, adding another layer to the night's texture. As the final note fades, the silence that follows feels fuller somehow, more complete. The fountain's whisper returns to prominence, as if it had politely quieted itself for the bells. You notice how the air has changed temperature, how it moves differently now across your skin. The fierce heat of day has given way to something gentler, a warmth that envelops rather than presses. Your clothes have absorbed the sense of the city during your wandering, smoke from grilled corn, the sweetness of ripe fruit, the earthiness of old stone. And now they release these memories slowly as you sit in stillness. The fabric against your skin has softened with the humidity, moving with you rather than constraining. The fountain continues its quiet song, water over stone, falling into water, rising to fall again. You watch a single droplet's journey, how it forms at the lip of the upper basin, trembles for a moment in perfect suspension, then falls to join its companions below. The basin itself is old limestone, stained green in places with age, worn smooth where the water has run longest. There's no urgency in its flow, no variation, just the steady continuation of a cycle that needs nothing from you, asks nothing of you. Your muscles have begun to release the day's tensions, first your shoulders dropping, then the loosening along your spine, the softening of your jaw. You hadn't realized you were holding tension there until it melts away. The stone bench, which might have seemed hard at first, now feels perfectly supportive, as if you found exactly the right position, the right angle of repose. Your feet rest flat on the smooth cobblestones, connected to the same earth that supports the fountain. The walls, the entire sleeping city. You can feel your heartbeat slowing, finding its own peaceful rhythm, perhaps even beginning to match the fountain's gentle pulse. Through an archway across the square, you can see a narrow slice of another street, where a single lamp burns in a window. The light is amber, soft, probably from a candle rather than electricity. Someone else is awake in Cartagena, perhaps reading by that light, or simply sitting as you are, letting the night hours pass in their own time. There's comfort in that distant glow, in knowing you're not alone in your wakefulness, even as the city dreams around you. The jasmine scent grows stronger for a moment as the breeze shifts, bringing with it the faintest sound of the sea, like a whisper just below the threshold of hearing. The air moves in layers, warm currents mixing with cool, each carrying its own collection of scents. First jasmine, then salt, then something green and alive from the courtyard gardens hidden behind walls. You close your eyes briefly, and behind your eyelids you can still see the soft gold of the lamplight, the pale stone of the fountain, the dark shapes of the palms above. These images float there, neither sharp nor urgent, just gentle impressions that drift and merge like clouds. When you open your eyes again, the square seems to have settled even deeper into tranquility. The shadows have lengthened and softened, their edges blurring into the general darkness. The fountain's sound has become so familiar that it feels like part of your own internal rhythm. Even the jasmine perfume has become less distinct, woven now into the general sweetness of the night air. You take another breath, slower this time, feeling how the air has weight to it, substance, how it fills you completely before flowing out again. You shift slightly on the bench, finding an even more comfortable position, your body settling like sand finding its angle of repose. The city walls that surround you feel less like barriers and more like arms, holding this old quarter in a protective embrace. Within them, time moves differently. The urgency of the modern world cannot quite penetrate here. These streets remember a slower pace, and they invite you to remember it too. The stones beneath your feet have been worn into gentle depressions by centuries of footsteps, each one a small cradle for your own feet to rest in. The water in the fountain catches a stray beam of moonlight, turning silver for just a moment before returning to darkness. You watch this small magic without trying to hold on to it, letting it pass as everything passes, as the night itself is passing, moment by gentle moment. Somewhere in the basin you notice the smallest movement, perhaps a night insect skating across the surface, or just the water's own mysterious life expressing itself in ripples. Your breathing has found its own quiet rhythm now, deep and easy, matching the larger breathing of the city as it rests. Each exhale seems to release not just air but the accumulated weight of the day, letting it dissipate into the jasmine-scented darkness. Somewhere, perhaps on the walls themselves, a nightbird calls once, a liquid note that seems to emerge from the darkness itself. It doesn't repeat, leaving only the memory of its voice hanging in the air like an echo of a dream. The square holds you in its ancient calm, asking nothing, offering everything. The fountain's lullaby, the jasmine's sweetness, the solid comfort of stone that has known countless nights like this one. You are part of it now, woven into this moment of perfect stillness, where the Caribbean night wraps around Cartagena like a soft blanket. Far off, beyond the walls, you sense rather than see the first suggestion of change in the darkness. Not light yet, just the promise that somewhere beyond the horizon, another day is gathering itself. But for now, you rest within the night, peaceful and cradled, as the fountain continues its eternal song, and the city holds its breath around you, waiting for dreams.